exciting over the weekend? Nothing? I saw Sonic the Hedgehog part 3. Really good movie. You would think it's just like for little kids, and I have little kids, but it's kind of some adult themes in there. All right, but let's take a look at the marketing project first, so that we're all clear. Has everyone kind of reviewed this on Blackboard? Yes, no? All right, so it's going to be PowerPoint format, right? I don't really care too much about minimum of words and all of that, right? As long as you're able to clearly convey your messaging, right? Because this class is about communication components too. So as long as you're able to be clear, concise about what you're talking about, I wouldn't pay too much attention about word counts and things, right? Don't let that be a stressor. The summary conclusion can be in short paragraphs. Try not to read the slide to talk to the class and messaging you're trying to convey. All right, you're gonna come up here, you're gonna give presentations as usual. Right? Remember when we give presentations, kind of like everything else in life, less is more. Right? You think that having an entire paragraph up on the board helps you, but it distracts you because you just gotta like read every word of the sentence and all that, right? Remember when we think about like being an intellectual or a scholar, an academic while in school, is being able to convey ideas simply, right? Things should not be too technical, too complex, right? It's almost as if you're talking to a tutor in your explanation. Right, so if you're giving a good presentation is short bullet points, and just remember the ideas. Right? Everything you talk about is just a concept of idea. And it's really good sometimes if you interject your own sort of perspective on it. Right? With clear examples, simple examples, real world examples. That should be the approach, right? Okay, let's take a look here. I think there's even an example of what it would look like. But there's an example, I'll go back to it. But here, hey, organizations are always looking to enhance and improve their relevancy and brand awareness in the marketplace. Global entities understand that in order to gain market share means to address a need or solve a problem. This is true for both local. So we're responsible for introducing a new product to one of the emerging markets, right? New product, something clever, something that's could be actually demanded by that particular culture, by that emerging market, right? Not something that would be useless to them, but something that you think would have a demand. You can choose any product from any company of your choice. What is the new product that you intend to introduce? Help renovate the current workplace, healthcare system, household, et cetera, government agency. Will it solve a problem, and what problem will it solve? Right? So I'm kind of giving you everything here. I'm going to first talk about your introduction, SWOT analysis, share the country that you wish to choose and why. Next, we'll look at relative advantage, compatibility, complexity, triability. We're going to talk about the market, distribution of the product, how it will be sold, retail, online, some other way, delivery systems, et cetera, et cetera. And compare and trash your product in the competition, right? So you're going to find maybe a competitor that's already probably pre-existing in that market, right? How do you differ? What are your strengths versus a competitor? Try to get as nuanced as possible. Some illustrations that your packaging, hey, why did you choose that color? Is that symbolism going to be offensive culturally to people? Did you think about that, right? What does this mean to them? Would they prefer to look clean like Apple's packaging, or prefer some very colorful, whimsical sort of packaging, right? Is it in a ball? Is it in a square? Is it in a triangle? Right? All those things that would be culture related. here we're trying to understand, placing ourselves in the shoes of other cultures, trying to take on one's perspectives outside of ourselves, right? Try not to get too personal in it. Make sense? Is that clear? And let's just see. There should be, so, you know, it gives a list of top emerging markets, things like Brazil and, like the BRIC country, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China. I wouldn't consider China an emerging market anymore. China's a global superpower. Okay. So you can go ahead and take a look at all that, and we'll also have our quiz here too. Let me see, here's our quiz. Our quiz may already be loaded for you to take. All right, yeah, our quiz is loaded, so I'll open it up. I'll make sure it's open up today, right? So maybe, you know, we can take some time to sleep, maybe get it in, I'll set the end date for it, Sunday at midnight. Other Monday at midnight, so the night before class. So I'll put that in announcement too, so. Okay, so that is that. And everyone has a group member, right? So I don't think I want to place people in groups. I think I want to just have everyone do their own thing. How's that sound? Yeah, I think this, you know, since the class is not open, so you can pick your own products, right, and work on your own projects. Okay, getting into chapter 4. Okay, so the first 3 chapters, we kind of repeated Hofstede, right? The cultural dimensions, right? Like the 6 major things that maybe we will focus on when it comes to culture, particularly in the workplace, within organizational structure. Right? So you say there's power distance, the acceptance of power, high acceptance of hierarchy of power. Hey, the boss is the boss, no question. The boss is like a father figure. You can think of the power dimensions of North Korea, right? I think they have a law that if there's a picture of him in the home, and the home has been set on fire, you don't save that picture during the fire, they would go to jail. Right? So that's an extreme case of that sort of power distance, right? Father figure, think of that, right? Mexico, El Jefe, right? Don't question the boss. Boss is the boss. You respect the order. You respect the rules, the social order. Right? You don't just illegally ask the boss questions. Hey, who asked you? Why are you talking? Right? If I get in trouble, I get killed. And then we say, hey, low power distance, us. This is us. Right? Hey, press us. Yeah, question. Right? Screw the president. Screw the vice president. The Secretary of State. We say that, not go to jail, right? The governor, the mayor. We hate the mayor. Such. We can say all of that. Nobody's going to jail, right? So it tends to be almost like a low level of some sort of, may look like there's a low level of respect towards authority, which is kind of true. 2 million incarcerated people in the United States, right? It's a lot of people don't really respect the rules, right? But then to a degree, I wouldn't say we're an extreme case. We're maybe somewhere moderate to low. We still have a lot of rules, right? We have a lot, probably the most rules on the planet for any other nation, right? But for the most part, our rights and freedoms kind of allow us to have low power distance, right? Kind of horizontal. We talked about masculinity versus femininity. We're thinking of sort of assertiveness and aggressiveness versus nurturing aspect, right? Competitive culture versus nurturing. We also talked about uncertainty avoidance. Hey, some countries like risk, others do not. And other couple of things, so we don't have to reiterate that too. But here we're going to talk about communications, like in different cultures. We're all from different cultures, right? But look how many different sort of procedures, my perception, ethnic backgrounds, right? Like how do you know? Phenotype, right? Physical characteristics that show some genetic expression. We all look a little different, which means we all come from a different type of culture. We all may have different ideologies, religions, we like different foods, we may talk different outside of the classroom in ways, right? Family structure, some of us could care less about family, others family is the most important thing. Some of us are atheist, agnostic, others are Catholic, Protestant, right? So we're like, hey, how does it all work? How do we communicate? How do we understand each other? How do we collaborate? How do we partner up so that we're able to get work done? Right? The show still has to go on. So this is very important. So we have things that are primarily verbal. Right? Primarily we verbally communicate out of our mouth. Primarily. Right? It's like, well, what are we communicating? A lot of subconscious thoughts. Think about the concept of fear. When you speak, you're like, well, who's picking the next word that you're going to say? Oh, yeah, the conscious mind. So it's like this integration of your conscious mind, unconscious mind. So a lot of our sort of real personalities come out through our expressions. Like, hey, some people talk slow. Some people talk very fast. Some people talk very low. Like, what was that? Okay. People are like, hey, tone it down. Like, talk sometimes. Right? You're like, hey, what is going on? What are they trying to convey? Remember, there's a field called semiotics in this, how we look at meaning, symbolisms. But even beyond that, like how everyone communicates has a purpose. Usually meaning that we communicate either to persuade, like, yeah, I want you to agree with what I'm saying. So I'm going to tell you some stuff. Read this article, and I'm going to place it to a way that when you finish reading, hopefully I'm convinced to believe this, right? Some of us are just storytellers. Like, oh man, that person's a great storyteller. Right? They're not the most influential person. They doesn't influence art. They tell wonderful narrations. Right? Some of us are very nonverbal, body language. What does this mean when people do this?
They're unengaged. They're unengaged or defensive.
Yeah, we could say defensive. Think about what you do to yourself has more to do with yourself than others. Right? So one, we could say defensive can exclude others. But two, what we could really say, you just gave yourself a hug. Like, why you gotta give yourself a hug? To calm you down, like mom is hugging you, relax you. Right? So you're like, oh, interesting. Why is somebody in a self-soothing position right now? Right? Oh, there's a stress on this one. For whatever reason. Some people have direct eye contact. A lot of people don't feel comfortable with direct eye contact. Looking into your soul. Find out comfortable. So particularly in the East, right? That they may not have that sort of direct contact. Unless they personally know you. Right? But as a stranger, that may not be comfortable. Here we prefer to kind of like respect, like, hey, why you can't look me in the eye? You're blind, right? What's going on? There's a reason. We take things that way. So we have things like nonverbal, touching of the face, right? But we say everything that's done has a reason. It can't go really unnoticed. Your positioning in your chairs and how comfortable it shows how comfortable you are right now. Right? There are some people who put their legs up, right? Comfortable. classroom atmosphere. Nah, it's comfortable because it's a big room. This is awesome, man. I don't feel crowded. I don't feel right next to somebody and stressed out. They all that stuff. Others may feel, tired and clearly show that we're exhausted. It's too early to be talking about these kinds of things, right? Others may have things going on in their lives, right? So like, hey, Dr. Russ, also you can tell, thinking about other things. Right? I'm often this one. But yeah, we say small things, tapping over the feet, stress, right? The legs, touching of the face also has a sign, usually it's some sign of thinking, which means someone's contemplating, that could be a sign of mind. Right? Particularly if one puts their hand by the mouth, right? You say, hey, why is your hand being directed at the mouth? So there's something happening with what's coming out of the mouth. Right? We don't know what it is. Could be lie, could be truth, could be thinking about the next words, fixation. But remember, body language, everything has a meaning. Right? So in the East and the West, we have these universal gestures that we have. Right? Hey, attitude. Right? Attitude, when we talk about speech, are you passive aggressive? People think you're super sarcastic every time you talk. Right? Sometimes not what you say, it's how you say it. Right? Some people can come off, you probably even had some professors who are like, I don't think I really been talking about it. Right? They seem like a jerk or something. Right? Just by the way that maybe they speak. But we got to be concerned about how we speak. Attitudes matter. So it probably matters even more, say in the East. Right? So we say here in the West, we can care less as long as the job is done. Right? But if we say that relationships are most important outside of countries outside of the United States, then it does matter your attitude. Right? Like it won't be done. Why? Because you make me feel something. Here in the US, like, who cares how much you feel? Just do the job. Right? So there's a difference in that sort of expectancy based on attitude. And depending on what attitude you even have, if you come from a very strong culture, you may bring those attitudes over here, right? And then you may have a lot of discrepancies in communication. Feedback mechanisms to verify, right? Things like repetition, paraphrases, and interruptions. Any of you do this? And when you have conversations with people, do you ask questions? You're like, hey, what I think I hear you saying is this. You kind of ask a question back. Or no, or you find it to be kind of rude, as if like you weren't. How would you take that? Would you take that as rude, like, weren't you listening? Or would you take that as like, no, I just want to clarify this issue? And if you do that, kind of just ask these questions back. Right, as a therapist, I have to do that all the time, especially if we're talking from a different culture, because it's like, it's not my therapy. They're coming with an issue, right? Mental health issue or something of the sort. And I'm like, well, what I get or what I understand from that is your position or role in your family is this. Religious or anything, gender or whatever. So I have to constantly reiterate just so I'm clear of the understanding, right? Because I'm a sensitive topic. Because if I just take it as my own sort of understanding, then later on it's like, that's not what I'm talking about, right? Totally misdiagnosed me of some sort, right? You weren't listening. Paraphrasing and interruptions. Some people who here interrupts when they have conversations? Who talks over? Anybody? Who here is very patient and waiting to let the next person speak? You make it a practice of, are you very conscious of it, or is it something that you've always do?
I wouldn't say I'm super conscious of it, but if I do interrupt somebody, it'll be, I'm talking with friends and I do it for like a comedic reason, like, I wanna speak over them for a joke, but I don't wanna like, do it in a rude way or anything.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Right, we say, hey, some people are power speakers, they want to control the conversation. Other people are very observant, right? They get all the details, they soak it up because they're quiet, they're great listeners. Right? People who talk may not get all the information, they're just too busy talking over people. There's a field in psychology which kind of deals with a model of parent, adult, child, and domain in communication. We call it transactional analysis, which means that if two people are talking, there's always a transaction going on, right? And usually it's about the positions of authority and power in that transaction. So they ascribe it to parent, adult, child, right? Parent, adult, child. That in a conversation at different moments, someone is talking like a parent, authoritative, right? Very authoritative, like control, like a parent. Someone is talking maybe as an adult, which is probably best, because it means as an adult we're mature and we allow others to convey their information. And then some of us may talk like a child, right? Depending on what's going on in the conversation. For example, right? You could say, hey, I'm late to work, right? You're late to work, going in, you have a boss, and you walk in, your boss is like, why the heck are you late? Don't ever do that again. You hear me? You understand? And you're like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm just, traffic was bad or something. I'm sorry. Well, in that situation, the boss is authoritative, and you just become a child, right, to the boss. You say, maybe as an adult, you would say in a healthy way, like, yeah, I was late, but please don't talk to me like that. To that, right? That means that you order the level of kind of respect, right? So, I mean, if we analyze that, but like, that happens in kind of every single conversation, right? Someone that's like taking a different position, trying to be authoritative, someone's trying to be a child, right? And even if we're being humorous, right? Like, hey, we're being childlike, right? There's a humorous about not being adult, right? But something to think about. Like, hey, you know, in this conversation, am I a parent, am I an adult, or am I the child in any conversation that you have, right? And then context dependent, right? All this depends on who, right? Who are we talking to? Mom, dad, boss, friend, right? Boyfriend, girlfriend. Where it happens, right? You don't talk here as you would outside of class, right? We'll say all that crazy stuff outside of class with friends, but maybe not here. And then when, right? Is it late at night? Is it during the day? Is it when you're 15 years old? Is it when you're 45 years old? Is it when you're 21? And then the other things, right? We talk about age, sex, dress, social standing. Everything has its place, right? Everything has its place. You communicate always. The billionaire can get away with going to work with a hoodie on, because he owns the company. But try to pull that off somewhere else and expect it to be taken seriously, like in a professional setting, not here in school, but like at a professional setting. And no matter how intelligent you are, right, you better have it on stuff. It may not be taken seriously, right? So everything has its place. Dress code, time, right? All sorts of those factors. Social standing too. Let me say status is important. Status is very, very important because status is actually part of what we call socioeconomic status, right? That's the last part of it, right? Which means that you can have the money, right? You may have a little bit of power, maybe, or you may not have the status. status is, your social standing, as we'll call it, is very, very important too in terms of the context. Which means that, hey, there's some very high-paying blue-collar jobs. High-paying, right? But it may not have the status or social standing in other, like white-collar jobs. Even though maybe some of the white-collar jobs don't pay maybe as much, right? But maybe the benefit there, this is social standing. Maybe society views it as something bigger. Right, we say here, people are more respected as rappers, actors, celebrities, famous people, as opposed to engineers, scientists, medical doctors, lawyers, things like that. So like here in America, we prefer entertainment, right? More than even people that kind of keep the society working, right? So we have kind of a skewed social standing. And then workplace, showroom, home, and friends. On a side note, I'll just forget, who has their little blurb this week? Okay, maybe we'll do 4 and then we'll leave. Next we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright? Just at the end of class, and then Thursday we'll do the rest. All right, back to communication styles. We say, hey, we got low context. Information is in the words. America's low context. Hey, Dr. Ross, you have a rubric? Yeah, what do we need a rubric for? Because I want to know every detail of what you expect. I want to know confusion. I can't go by just what you tell me. I'm not really sure, right? Other cultures not so much, right? Throw out the idea. Like, hey, this is what I expect you to do. And it's like, everybody's like, okay, we can fill in the blanks so that you tell us. Right? Here we're like, I'm confused, right? What exactly? But then you're like, well, why would I even convey that message? That would be, maybe I'm from high context. Maybe I'm a little bit of both, right? So as a professor, as a businessman, as a therapist, I have to have a little bit of both, but on a personal level, right? A lot of things are implied. On personal, we're like, hey, on background, Italian dad, like things are just like, yeah, you know what we mean. You know what we mean. And then on the black side, it's like, you know, very short words, acronyms, slang, and all that. Like we just, everybody kind of understand. But then on a professional, I'll be like, you still have to be very concise in how you do this in a professional setting too, right? So maybe to a degree, I have probably like a little bit of the both. I get kind of this, hey, you understand what I'm saying? But then sometimes like, no, I have to be very concise and comfortable. So you're like, man, a little bit of African American side and a little bit of European side. Right? Say it what it is as a scientist, or leave it implied for everybody to try to guess and understand what it is. So I probably have a little bit of both high and low context. Information is in the words that we say in love, right? Tell me what it is, write the email, out the way with every word, right? Don't leave anything out to be guessed. To be effective, it must be direct and unambiguous, which is really our culture, right? No one likes ambiguity here. So advertisements have more arguments and rhetoric. Anyone can think of an example of an advertisement with very direct messaging. Maybe even something you've seen on social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Or what about high context? Anything you can think of where it's like, oh man, I don't really know what they're trying to say. Or there right? Okay, we say, hey, Apple is kind of hot content. Apple leaves stuff open to interpretation. What you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Apple's like, hey, guess what? If we were to talk about all this technology, processing too, right? That's boring right there, right? We just want to know how great the camera is, how it's going to make the lifestyle look, usability, and how easy it is. Just show me what it could do. Don't tell me anything about the technical aspects, right? Nobody's interested in it, except for the people interested, which is people, engineers and programmers and coders, technical. Right, so Apple's like, hey, we're gonna show you the lifestyle which you can get with the device. You don't need to be that up on the technology, so you can engage in it, and that's how they work. Low context could be pharmaceutical companies, right? Like in the pharmaceutical ads, they have to be very specific about what they do, and then at the end they talk about all the side effects, blah, 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 right? Important, right? Everything has to be direct and effective because they're probably open to lawsuits. So we say high conflict. Information is in symbolism and indirect. It's a funny one. Anyone know Shannon Sharp? I know that's worse. Right, so Shannon Sharp has the Rose Sparks, kind of like a sexual enhancement deal, basically, right? And he had the incident where he had his Instagram live open, and it was kind of like he was having sex with a woman or something. But you couldn't see it, right? But everybody thinks that that was a marketing ploy, because immediately after that, he started promoting for his company, Rose Sparks, right? And they like interject some of the sound bites from his Instagram live, and then he has like other athletes and comedians come on, and they kind of help him promote it too. But they speak in a language that's it's vague, but you know exactly what you're talking about, kind of like sexual things. But kind of very indirect. If you have a chance, check it out. It's pretty funny advertisement. I think it works as well too. All right. So physical context of a person or person with high context, right? We say, hey, we are about your energy, do I like you? There's your gestures, right? You make me feel comfortable, right? That's how the communication is really agreed upon in high context, right? Are you coming off as a jerk? Are you coming off as friendly and open? Because it's about relationships in high context. High context, like, hey, you should understand me because there's some stuff I don't need to say. It should be obvious, like my energy, my body language, my attitude, my disposition, right? So physical context for the person. Words can have different meaning depending on the context, right? So it could be same word here, but different meaning in the cultural context. Advertisements have more visual symbols and association. Here we say kind of Apple, lots of visuals, right? Just very fanciful, dreamlike, good editing, those type of styles. Hey, nuances in the verbal message. We say some people talk sarcastically, right? Sarcasm here in the United States is kind of appreciated. It means you're clever, right? Clever, witty. But then also to a degree, you're like, well, it depends, right? If it's a very serious environment, sarcasm wouldn't be tolerated, right? Sarcasm, we say, in high power distance cultures probably wouldn't be tolerated as much, as seen as a sign of disrespect. Right? So you kind of have to know your audience with sarcasm, right? Added meaning, things of that nature. Non-verbal communication, we talked about that, gestures, eye contact. Here, gestures really do matter. And all across the world they matter. What does this mean? Why does the military use this? Why do drill sergeants use what's called as the knife hand? What does this mean? Someone come up with this. Right, this represents like a threat, a position of power. threat, like, we were talking to somebody who didn't know that well, and they were going like this, they're threatening. Like, this is a knife, this is a physical knife, it's just a hand. It's like a symbolism it represents. Right, somebody points at you. By pointing you, let's say they point at the men, you know, I'm like this, you might take that as a little bit like, no, hey, you know, what's going on, back off. If I do it to a woman, you're like, that might be a threat too. Make might feel super uncomfortable, right? Like pointing, like pointing means that you just extra little push, even though I'm not touching. Right, so all they have meaning, the finger here, right? Would really originate in places like Britain, things like that, and that has to do. Right, commonly used over in, say, Britain, anywhere else, highly offensive. The peace sign may be, you know, really cool here, other places may mean something else because of their history, because of their culture. Right, so you have to be very careful on these gestures. 16 ways the Japanese avoid saying no, right? Remember we say indirect versus direct cultures, high, low context, right? Here we're explicit. People don't have a problem saying no. Hey, could you help me move my furniture? Right? Oh, I'm so offended. Why would you do that? No. There's just no. Hey, could you do me this favor? No. Right? We go to Japan, they're like, to say no is like one of the worst things. It's uncomfortable to say no. You know, what would you think of me? It's about relationships. Here we're like, I don't care what you think about me. Right? Because we're individualistic. Right? It's not about relationships, it's about us competing to be the greatest selves. Which is our ourselves. But we say to Japan, hey, there's a resistance to no, because no is uncomfortable. And some of us think of that. Some of us may have that inability to say no, which could very well be a cultural component. Could be because of the culture. Anyone here has a bad issue of saying no to people? So you always find yourself like agreeing to things you really didn't even want to do in the first place? Who? Raise your hand. Do you find yourself, tell me the situations like where you find yourself like committing to things you absolutely don't even want to commit to? Like, what do you do about it? You just go through with it, or do you like later on, or do you find yourself where you're like, hey, I'm not gonna do it. Well, hopefully it blows over, and then it does, you know, becomes a real big issue. Like, hey, why did you commit to it? You didn't want to do it. Does you ever have those issues?
Sometimes you might commit to it, and the other person backs out. So then, okay, it's good, it works in my favor, but it all depends on the situation.
But leading up, do you ever find yourself like making little excuses along the way? So it's easier to like get out of it as opposed to just thinking about saying no. Someone else over here.
Yeah.
How does that work out for you?
Like a lot of times you just gotta go through with it. Like I don't wanna be seen as like not committed to it, so I gotta go through. But yeah, most of the time I just go through with it. Otherwise, like yeah, I'll come up with like if I know I don't want to, like I'll throw in like little excuses along the way. Like oh, I have to do this too. Just remember, so when the day comes, to be like, oh, actually it's just too many things.
Yeah. So think about it, like we're avoiding like the distress of what comes with no, because we're concerned about
Yeah, 'cause I'd rather just say that than say no.
Yeah. So it's like, hey, you know what? If I say yes, I'll deal with it later. Right? This is too much. I need time really. I don't have time, so I just say yes, and then I'll do all that little dancing around it later. How about back there? How does it work out for you usually?
It's usually at work for the most part that everyone, since I'm a closer, everyone kind of leaves and it's like, is it okay if I leave this? Because I don't have time, I have to leave. And I find myself saying yes
highly competitive. It's about people came out themselves first, right? Hey, come on, did you get that for me? I gotta really get out of here. And they leave it for you. Now you gotta do the work, right? We do work now. You late getting home. And you're tired and exhausted. So somebody's like, ah, they will abuse them. They'll continue like, oh, I know who I can ask next time. I know who won't say it. I guarantee you, the person they call. They're gonna call the person who don't say that don't know how to say no. But then the people who know how to say no, oddly enough, you may think of them like, man, that person's a jerk. Why? Because their no's are just so, no. No, sorry, no. Right? You might think they're a jerk, but you respect that person. Right? At the end of the day, you start to respect them. You're like, oh, that person stands up for themselves. They have a position in life. But when we don't say no, we're kind of like, oh, you know, get over on that person, right? So yeah, think of that. It's because it's highly competitive and it will be abused. You don't say no, people will abuse. In this culture. Other cultures, not so much, because they say everybody looks out for each other. Nobody would even do that in certain cultures, right? They'll probably stay with you, they'll probably put in extra 15 minutes. And we can see that even here. People come from strong cultures, right? In the West. There's people come from certain ethnic backgrounds, certain cultural backgrounds. They are very gracious. Like, oh, I hope y'all stay here for 30 minutes. You're gonna wait so much. Might be a cultural component, right? Right? Big cultural component of why they behave that way. All right, 16 ways the Japanese avoid saying no. Hey, they give a vague no. No, right? Looking down, not looking direct, like that. No is like, sure. No, right? Silence, right? Counter question, right? Doing something, asking more questions to keep the conversation going, because you don't want to address disconnect in this conversation by saying no. Tangential responses, things that have nothing to do with what we're talking about, something way out in the fringes, right? So which is an avoidance? It's basically just all this is avoided. Like no, right? Exiting, leaving, lying, equivocation, or making an excuse. We say maybe not outright lying, but making an excuse, sickness, previous obligation. Criticizing the question itself, right? Refusing the question, the conditional no. Yes, but, right? It's always a but. Blank answers, we will write you a letter, we'll get back to you, right? Internally, yes. Externally, no. Internally, no. Externally, yes. An apology, the equivalent of the English no, primarily used in filling out forms, conversations. All right, so these are many ways, and that's not just the Japanese, right? Once again, here in the West, we could examine certain cultures and be like, yeah, I can kind of tell that person when to say no, they still want to say it, right? I could go even and say like Italian culture, like yes is a handshake, right? And no is like, oh, you know, I gotta think about that, right? I think about it. I get that, right? Japanese no, right? It's BS, right? Because we know that affirmative is usually respected as a handshake. Hey, we agree. Boom. And we say, hey, here in different cultures, right? Let's say African American culture, it's not usually even some kind of handshake. It's just verbal. It's like expected, which means a lot of it doesn't get fulfilled. All right. So, and then we say like even here in the U.S. Caucasian Americans, like white Americans, it has to be in writing. And just waiting for the where's the document? Where's the reason? Where's the document? So even here when we examine like maybe the nuances of ethnic groups and race, we're like there's still some different ways things get agreed upon or letting it go to say no. Right? But here, remember when we talked about Hallstead before this class, we're not really talking about ethnic groups. So, but we're talking about nationalities, right? Because we say Hallstead's dimension, it doesn't apply to everything within the U.S., assuming ethnic groups, right? doesn't apply to everything in Turkey, it's too many ethnic groups. But we have to say as a whole nation, this is kind of what the majority is, right? So in our mind, we're keeping it simple, right? We're not gonna bracket things into ethnic groups within that country. All right, we got 20 minutes left. Let's start, who's the person over here? Okay, let's start over here.
So this week in mine, I read an article in Wall Street Journal, which was basically talking about creativity. So they interviewed 1,015 C-suite leaders and then 24 like marketing executives just to get like their thoughts on like growing a company basically. So high growth employers, which is basically just a company that has 10% annual revenue increase. Most of those employers had a lot of the same ideas, so they fostered creative ideas, encouraged risk taking, and promoted creative collaboration. Statistically, like there was a much larger increase in the revenue of those companies. Obviously, how creative they allow somebody to be is like up to debate, but on average, they said that employers that look for creativity and encouraged it saw greater revenue growth. So for employees, that's something that you should look to do, and as an employer, that's something you should look for.
Great, good. Do you have any examples you can think of, like companies that kind of have that sort of culture? Organizations?
I mean, they didn't talk about any in the article, but I would say like probably Google, because I know
Google.
like whenever they talk about Google, it's always like having new ideas and like wanting to stay at the company all day and like spend more time with them and stuff like that.
Okay.
So,
All right. Great. Yeah, and you think about, that's probably a low power distance culture, right? Because you're kind of like, hey, everybody, we expect to have some great ideas. We might have like a time where people just go into a big meeting and roll out random ideas and concepts, and everybody's opinion or idea might be valued to something, right? As opposed to this hierarchy, like, even if you get great ideas, they have to be communicated up to the boss, right? That matters, so. All right, excellent. Next.
So I wanted to talk about Boeing and how they're expecting to lose about $4 billion in their next like shareholder meeting or whatever. I was reading an article about it earlier today, and it kind of stood out to me because I remember about a year ago they had the issue with the door on the plane and how it kind of flew off mid-flight. And so they've been kind of struggling to build up their reputation since then, and they haven't posted a profit since 2018, which is a really long time for any company, let alone in an industry where every plane costs so much to make, and for them to continuously be losing money is not sustainable. And so I'm wondering how they're going to fix their reputation with consumers to make them more trusting in their flights, and see if they can fix that going forward.
people travel on planes, right? And if people can't afford to travel on the planes, companies aren't gonna buy new airplanes, because they can't, they don't have a need for them, right? They use these planes for 20, 30 years on average, so why would they buy an expensive new plane and jack up the price for us to travel, right? We won't buy that at those prices. So it really probably has to do a lot even with the airline industry altogether, right? So, they're probably struggling to get some profits because of that. All right, who's next? I got two more, back there. And then-
Hey guys, so I'm talking about the International Day of Commemoration in memory of the victims of the Holocaust, which was actually yesterday. The purpose of this day and this commemoration is to honor the memory of the 6 million Jewish victims and those of others who suffered under Nazi persecution. And then also to promote education around the subject, that anti-Semitism, hatred, and genocide. Some global events that are going on surrounding this include memorial ceremonies, educational programs, and just exhibits, which gives us the time to reflect on the importance of human rights and tolerance. And then there's kind of a quote, which says, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Thank you.
Have you been to any of the Holocaust museums?
I have not.
There's a lot of great ones. Right. Mike.
Alright, so, we're gonna talk about how Saudi Arabia plans on investing $600 million over the next 4 years in the US. The Crown Prince, last Thursday, said he wanted to invest in it over the next 4 years, possible. Talking about, and Trump was also talking about heading to the Kingdom, for his first foreign trip that he did his last time in office. And he would also be open to invest another 450 million, 500, depending on inflation, but probably support it.
Do you know which maybe markets or sectors that you want to invest in?
I would think oil.
Here, get into the energy business
Yeah.
here.
I would think that. I didn't really talk about it that much in the article, but that's where the point was.
All right. I would think too, maybe like energy.
That's it, yeah.
Like maybe allowing them potentially to have some ownership of some of the sports teams, or building up some new sports teams, like the ones they're trying to do in Las Vegas. All right, that is see you on Thursday. Have a great day.